I push to the point that I know if I push further, then I will lose the control, but then I do it intentionally because I also want to know what's happening then.
Welcome to The Leading Edge, the podcast that captures the art, science and soul of wingsuiting. I'm your host, Jack Peplow, and today I'm joined by someone who has turned the tunnel into a laboratory for human flight. Some pilots follow a path, others build one. For Arvid Endler, wingsuiting has always been about progression. From early skydivers with base in mind, to 2 years of full-time tunnel coaching, to experimenting at the edge of what's physically possible in wingsuit.
Hi, my name is Arvid Endler. I'm 30-year-old from Germany, and I started skydiving 2015, and everything was focused on eventually wingsuit base jumping. And then along the path, I got into the wingsuit tunnel. I worked there since 2020.
Well, Arvid, look, it's absolutely fantastic having you on the podcast. So thanks very much for coming on. What patterns in movement or body input have you only noticed because of the tunnel repetition?
Probably things in my body that are not as obvious. Like when you skydive, people tell you about head or shoulders or arms, but then they don't really tell you much about, for example, the belly or the knees, even though normal belly flying, skydiving, of course they use the knees, but I haven't heard about knee inputs before I started doing them in the tunnel. And the funny thing is I know now when I look back, I used the knee inputs in the tunnel, and I guess a lot of wingsuit skydiver use it too, maybe not even knowing that I'm using this. And this is so fascinating for me. So when I started coaching it to give my students even more insights about what they do, I knew I already used them for at least a year, but I wasn't realizing it.
Talking about the transition from tunnel to the sky, what elements of tunnel skill transfer perfectly to the sky, in your opinion?
Probably all the basic flying, the flat flying. I mean, of course, everyone who had a look at the tunnel noticed, okay, you cannot go super steep because we are, first of all, limited by the glide ratio. And in Slovenia, it's 1.5 now. It's a bit steeper than Stockholm, but it is still not very steep. And then also by the speed, because of course, if you go steeper and steeper outside, the speed increases massively, and we don't have plus 200 kilometers per hour speed in the tunnel. So everything what is close to comfortable two-way or comfortable formation flying, I think is very close to what you do in the tunnel. And then when you bring it outside, it's easy. I think in the tunnel, people might struggle when they go out, or when people go out, they might struggle a little bit with the speed, because it's probably in general, people fly faster outside, and in a tunnel you get used to a little bit slower flying. We can, of course, teach and train the speeding up part, but in the end, you need to do it then yourself outside. And a comfortable flying position is not super efficient and super fast, so that you need to do. But once you're okay with it, I think then all the flat flying on the belly, on the back, and transitions, things what you do for, and I don't know if you agree or don't, but you've done acro competitions now too. And I think those stuff you can train super well in the tunnel, and then you go outside. And what I noticed when I trained with Patrick so much is that I think when we trained and practiced in the sky, we mainly focused on how do we approach a certain movement, where do we look, how do we orientate ourselves, and not so much again about, okay, how do we do the barrel or how do we do the pancake, because this is something like I said, I'm sure you can practice it super well in a tunnel, and then suddenly you don't have the box anymore. So now you need to know, okay, do I look to the other person? Do I just steer straight forward to try to be in perfect spot and present my arms and my hands for the other person? So we were more figuring out how do we do those things rather than trying to improve our movements, right?
How do you go about testing new movements safely in the tunnel before, obviously, before you even go ahead with them? Like, what goes through your head?
Experimented and I tried a lot, especially also in the beginning when the whole thing was super new. Sometimes it's just actually on the go. You have a session with a friend, with a coach or a friend or whatever, and you're just flowing a bit, and then suddenly something happens, and afterwards you're like, man, that was interesting, that was new. Or even the other person is doing something, and then you watch the video again, and then you try to understand it, and then try to think about how to practice it. Or I try to do it. And then for some things, for example, I mean, I know you know the front flips, but I was also trying back flips, and I'm eager to continue doing that eventually, but it's a bit more sketchy. And I was just, so my way to approach it was, I was thinking, how can I make it fairly safe? So I started with low speed, just doing backflips in the wingsuit standing on the ground, because even that is super weird already. And then slowly put the speed up to see if I can do it still from the ground back to the ground with speed what I could usually also fly on the back. And I was thinking about this move for a year before I tried it the first time, flying and then crashing, basically. And for me, it's a bit like a mix from, I try to think and analyze as much as I can with my knowledge about it and think about, okay, how do I move my arms, my legs? And then I visualize a lot. So with the backflip, I remember that very well. I spent so many evenings and nights just thinking about it, and then, okay, but if I would do the arm here, what would happen then when I rotate, and just picturing myself doing this movement with the airflow. That was crazy. I couldn't sleep super well, because then I also know I really want to do it soon. So in the next week, next days, I finally going to try it for the first time. And that stressed me, because I know there's a really good chance that I just end up landing on my neck, what I also did then for pretty much every attempt. So, and then there's this point where I also accept, okay, I think I figured it out, or at least thought as far as I'm able to think about it. And then when I actually started trying it, and it's funny, I think I did it 2 times for several attempts. And that was it. And afterwards, I thought maybe I need to get better overall to get back. Nothing happened. I didn't even hurt myself. I just really ended every time pretty much on my head. So then I decided maybe it's, if I in the long term still want to do those things, I need to find a different way to practice this. And then, yeah, in the end, I went into the tunnel for that session. I was full on adrenaline, pretty nervous for sure. But then I said, okay, now I just do it. And then there was the point where I just was like, okay, I just do it. And it kind of worked, kind of failed, but not in a bad way. I didn't hurt myself. So I did it a couple more times, figured out I'm not able to change much, because I was also very intimidated by the ceiling. On the front flip, it was okay. I was good with the judgment of the height, but on the back, popping up into the ceiling, I was thinking, if I bang my knees in it, I either break them or at least make a really bad crash down afterwards. So it was an interesting time. And then, sorry, to go back to your question and how I approach it, I try to think as much as I can about the things I can think about. And I guess I can say I'm okay with taking risks. And then there's the point where I feel, okay, I prepared, and now I'm going to take the risk. And then it's either sometimes it works and sometimes it's crashing. So some other moves I was surprised. I thought about that might work. Then I tried things and I didn't even hurt myself. I didn't crash, and it kind of worked. It maybe didn't lead to anything cool or new or something I can really use, but it was just good to try. And so,
Is there potential where the tunnel can create false confidence if not managed properly?
look at me, I might be the best example for this, right? I'm really confident in my flying skills, and I'm very comfortable with my wingsuit base jumping. And it certainly comes from so much flying in the tunnel. And for a regular customer, I don't know. It's probably, but it's less likely, I think, because you need to spend really a lot of time in the tunnel to be able to do certain things. And I think if you respect what you do and you go also on your skydive with or base jump with common sense, and you still know the risk of it. And if you feel the air, feel your body, you probably also notice when you get a bit close to the point. Let's talk about the skydive. So close to the point where you probably know, like, oh man, if I would have pushed the barrel to or double barrel or something a little bit more, I'm sure I would have lost it and then spun out or something. So I think that is hard, because for me, what changed in that way a little bit is maybe that I'm very aware if something happens. And in skydiving, I often push, if I experience with certain movements or something, I push to the point that I know if I push further, then I will lose the control. But then I do it intentionally because I also want to know what's happening then. And I don't think someone who's doing 2 to 10 to 20 hours in a tunnel is like, yeah, man, sure. I just spin now until I completely risk a flat spin. So there, I think there's this natural, the instinct, what will make you pull out of this approach or this movement, right? And it's like, well, maybe I hold back a little bit. I think it can create some, but I think it mainly comes with a lot of time in the tunnel.
Let's just say someone is due to go and do their first flight course, like they want to go and get their wingsuit. At what point would you advise them to go to the tunnel, and what would the initial structure look like?
I would recommend to think about doing 1 to 5 hours. So I think this is a range. Let's say if you end up doing this 5 hours within 1 or 2 years, very early, or even before your first wingsuit, first flight course, you get a base of understanding for belly flying, back flying, and then within 5 hours, probably also about transitions. So what will happen on your first flight course and during your first wingsuit attempts on the first flight course already, you don't need to worry much, or maybe not really at all, about will you be able to fly or not. And I think that is something I can imagine is pretty stressful if you don't know how the wingsuit flies. You don't know if it will be well. And you probably saw a lot of videos and heard a lot of stories from friends that tell you the third flight course went all over the place and somehow it worked. And eventually I figured out how to fly straight, right? But then you also need to be aware about navigating, and you need to be aware of not hitting the tail when you exit the airplane. So there are many different factors, not ending up in a line twist when you open, what I think create a lot of stress. And a very easy way is 1 hour of tunnel time, so you have an idea of how normal straight flying will work. And that takes a lot of stress away. So you can, on the exit, think about the exit, and then as soon as I'm in the air safely after the exit, then I do what I already know. And then approaching the opening, probably in the tunnel, we already did asymmetrical flying, those kind of stuff. So you're not stressed about if I might drop left or right, because you have an idea how to compensate it, or you already can fully fly with one arm in, both arms in, those kind of stuff. So again, on the opening, you're not overwhelmed by your flying and then thinking about opening. You just focus on what you were told about the opening. So I would recommend, as early as someone possibly can, go into the tunnel, get a base understanding of flying. And even if you then also say, like, wingsuiting is a cool hobby, tunnel is very expensive, but I will pursue this hobby twice a month in the summer, whatever. Not super much. But what we can tell you about flying on the belly, on the back, and transitions, to give it a base, is a lot. And if you never come back to the tunnel, but you heard about those 3 things already, you can continue making your own assumptions, probably self-explain certain maneuvers, certain things to you. Watch a video of a friend, have an idea what he should do or an idea of what you should do. And then you never need to go back to the tunnel. You have a fun hobby, don't need to spend heaps of money, but you can skip a lot of sketchy moments in the beginning, I guess.
What is the biggest lesson or mistake that you've learnt in your journey of wingsuiting so far?
I'm pretty happy that I haven't had any close calls. I think one lesson, it wasn't really crazy, but it was my only cutaway so far I had. It was something, when I look back, it was a valuable lesson because it was the XRW. It was a very big wingsuit I flew. We flew pretty slow. And then afterwards, I was not thinking really about, I didn't made a real game plan for what do I do after flying away, not thinking about how big the wingsuit is or anything. So I flew slow, I didn't speed up, but then just without any thoughts, I started flaring a little bit, what was completely stupid because I stalled the suit. So when I pulled, nothing happened. My pilot chute was on my back. So I noticed that because it took a very long time. And then I started shaking a bit. Then I saw my canopy in front of me because I was very slow, big burble. So I saw a big bunch of canopy in front of me. What was very helpful in one way that now I was like, fuck, now it will for sure go to shit. So I could cut away pretty much immediately, but I was very surprised how quick the canopy went. Absolutely nuts with me. And I think if I wouldn't be already prepared that this will now be a cutaway, I don't know. So after that, I could believe that it's hard to cut away and reach the cutaway handles once you're in a big spin, because one side of the canopy was fully inflated, the other side was a big ball. And I think it was a valuable lesson because it taught me that even on a jump, what was nothing special for me at that time, so nothing where I felt like, oh my God, that will be difficult or anything. You maybe want to go through the procedures of emergency and thinking about things. So just raising the awareness that I cannot just not think at all, have a good time with people, chit chat, and not paying attention to anything. I think that was a really good lesson for me. And I can say in base, nothing happened so far where I felt like, whew. So lucky.
Not lucky. I'm sure that's down to preparation. Long may that last, Arvid. But look, a huge thanks for coming on the podcast. I really, really enjoyed chatting to you. And
I'm happy you asked, and I was, pleased that I could be here. And for sure, I love to talk about it. I love to coach. I love to fly, and I look forward to just do exactly that in the next weeks here in the tunnel again.
Huge thanks to Arvid for sharing his journey, not just the movements and progression, but the thinking and preparation behind them. His story is a reminder that growth in wingsuiting isn't accidental. It's built through repetition, curiosity, and the discipline to prepare before you ever take the risk. If this conversation made you rethink how you approach learning, experimentation, or preparation in flight, share it with a friend and follow The Leading Edge for more stories from the edge of human flight. I'm Jack Peplow, and this is The Leading Edge.